Have you ever stopped to think about the fans behind a band? What is it about the music that keeps fans coming back for more? Or is there more? My name is Renee Lipsmeyer, and I am the host of this podcast, The Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. Each week, a fellow DMB fan joins the show to discuss their journey with the band. Welcome to the Space Between Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about a band that has been making music for over 30 years. If this is your very first time to listen to this podcast, we talk about one band, and really one band only, and that band is the Dave Matthews Band. This October 2024, the Dave Matthews Band is being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I am so excited as a fan to be seeing this happen. Not that they needed it, they didn't need it, but what an honor, just what an honor, and the class that they are getting inducted with, just so excited for all of them because, man, there's such a class. Every year has an amazing class, but I just feel like my team has won the Super Bowl, and that's like the only way I can describe my feelings. I'm not necessarily a sports person because music is like kind of my whole deal, but like my team has finally won a very, I guess, just everyone knows about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's such an honor. It's such a prestigious thing to be a part of. And you have to have put in time in order to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's definitely something they've done. Over 30 years of music with hardly any breaks at all, which is just insanity. So because of their longevity, they've picked up fans since the beginning, since 1991 when they started in Charlottesville, Virginia, and they're still picking up fans all across the world. And so every episode, I bring a fan of the Dave Matthews Band to come on the show and tell their personal journey of how they found the music and how has that music impacted their life. So today is like every episode, I have Tom on the show. So Tom, thank you so much for being willing to share your journey with everyone. Tom, tell us where in the world do you live, and like what does life look like? What do you like to do? We know you love the Dave Matthews Band, or you would not have been on this show. But like outside of the Dave Matthews Band, what keeps you going? Like what do you like to do for fun?
Well, first, thanks for having me on and having so many other fans on just to share their story and have conversation with you. And it's just great to be here and see where this story and where this journey takes us. But I currently live in the pumpkin capital of the world. Around 85% of the world's canned pumpkins are canned like right here.
Oh, I don't know where it is. Where is that?
It's Morton, Illinois.
Illinois, who knew?
Yeah, it's right in the middle of everything, just a couple hours south of Chicago, a couple hours north of St. Louis. But we're right here, and I've always been kind of an Illinois person, spent some time out in Colorado as well, but my journey has me here now.
Yeah.
Other than the band, the last 10 years, my life has been engulfed with my two young boys and my family. I have a 10-year-old and 8-year-old, two amazing little bulls in a china shop. They actually got to experience their first Dave shows this year. I took them to their first show and second show at Alpine. They were at Dave NATO.
Oh no!
I know.
We'll have to walk through that because I'm sure that was completely different as a parent than if you were there by yourself, right? Just like the level of fear. So we'll definitely jump into that. So 8 and 10, is that right?
Yep.
8 and 10, those are such great ages. Such great ages. So what do they like to do? Like, do they like the Dave Matthews Band, or do they like it because you like it?
they really do. At least I feel like they like it. At first, they're like, "Why do you always have it on Dave Matthews Band radio?" I think since they learned the power of technology going in cars, they stomach it because if they get tired of it, they can put on headphones. But
Exactly.
they have songs they were chasing. They have their favorite songs. They have the things that they like about it, and it's really spurred them into discovering their own music that they love. They put on their music on their iPads when they get in the shower, and they have their
Yeah.
own little playlist. And there's some Dave, and there's some Bon Jovi, and
Dude.
there's Outcast, and there's
What?
I
Yes.
mean, it's like my kids are phenomenal. I've done something right with them,
Yes, you
and
have.
their mom did something amazing with them. And the last 10 years has been all about kids in our family, and really that's only uh, grown exponentially in the last 2 years as our family kind of took a dramatic shift. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that, but as
Yeah.
we're a big outdoor family, we're a big sports family. We love music. We love just experiences, and we just started another new experience this summer that we're going to kind of combine with Dave's shows. I learned from some other Dave fans, and we're going to start visiting national parks. And when we go
Mm.
to see a Dave show, we're going to try to find a nearby national park, and we have a little passport book, and we're going to try to do little multi-purpose trips when we go and see a Dave show or other experiences around the country.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always encourage people to that Dave has always been kind of my travel agent because I would have never because I would have never visited so many of the places that I've been to. The only reason I was going there was to see the Dave Matthews Band, places like Deer Creek, which is in Indiana. I mean, I don't think there's anything that would have ever taken me to Noblesville in general. But then would there have been anything in my life that would have taken me to most of these places? So I love how you are, making incorporating that with your children because our country is so beautiful and each state is so incredibly different,
Yeah.
and that's what's so cool about our country. I mean, there's multiple things that are cool about our country, but like it is so beautiful, and the more I visit it, the more I fall in love with our country. And so take us back. I mean, like obviously because you're on the show and you've just kind of spilled the beans a little bit. You're going to shows with your kids. Like, do you remember a time where you just first heard them, or the first time you heard them and you actually like
Oh,
processed it?
100%. No, I mean it's the first time I ever heard the band. It's funny it was my kids because my first two Dave experiences were with my stepfather and then my mother.
Ooh,
And
awesome.
it was December of '98. My stepfather newly became stepfather. My stepsister, my brother, and I go to the Rolling Stones Bridges to Babylon tour down in St. Louis at the then TWA Dome. And
Wow.
if any Dave fan knows what's coming next, and we're a couple songs into the show, and Mick Jagger comes on and talks about a guy that joined him over in Europe earlier in the tour, and it was a young man that had a band, and his name is Dave Matthews, and he
Oh my
invited him out
God.
on stage. And they made a DVD out of this whole concert, so you can find it on out there. You
What?
can find it on YouTube,
Yes.
but Dave and Mick Jagger sang Wild Horses together on stage.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was my first experience hearing anything of that world. And I kind of looked at my sister or my stepsister who's 6 months older than me. I'm like, who's this guy? And she's like, how do you not know who this guy is? And, and then introduced me into gave me a couple of her albums to kind of get warmed up to. And that's where I ran off. And then in 99, I wanted to go see a show, just the whole band, and my mom and her best friend from college took me and my brother, and it was at Soldier Field. Buddy Guy, I think, came out and opened,
Yes.
but we were about 15 rows dead center at Soldier Field, and one of my funniest, best concert stories ever from that one, and I remember my brother and I are up on the seats standing, so we can see over everything.
Yeah.
And my mom pulls us both down because she's on the ground. She goes, "Someone's smoking reefer." And we just kind of laugh and
Oh no.
just start laughing. She goes, "What's funny?" Someone's talking. I'm like, "Mom, no one calls it reefer
Oh, I
anymore."
know. She
Uh,
just dated herself by saying it, reefer. Oh, but oh my
but
goodness.
but all things come back. I hear, with all the legal states, you definitely hear it coming around, and
Yeah.
that's coming back now. So I just now blame my mom for bringing it back,
Yeah.
bringing the
Well,
terminology and slang back.
maybe
No,
thanking her, like, hey, thanks, mom. You're
yeah,
so cool. Like it
yeah.
was because of you,
And
mom.
for the record, she was not doing it. She was
No,
nothing of
no.
that. Yeah,
We
no.
won't put,
But
yeah,
yeah,
no.
no, those were my first couple experiences with the band.
Well, hold
And
on, just
my,
because I mean, for me, I have to ask you, when she handed you those first couple of CDs after you saw him and Mick Jagger together, like, do you remember which CDs it was? Because I want to know what you dug into first.
yeah, live at Luther. Well, she gave me Before These Crowded Streets, I think it was, and that was all right. But then I found Listener Supported and Live at Luther College, and those were the two that I really jumped into. And I was definitely more of a live fan at that
Yeah,
point than a studio fan because
yeah,
I'd seen them live. I heard a couple live albums, and then I got to see them in Chicago at Soldier Field. So
right.
it was that was kind of my introduction at that manner. But the songs that really captured me were Warehouse was really I remember big.
Mhm.
For some, I love Christmas song. I got to
Yeah.
hear Christmas song when they did at Wrigley, I think in 2011,
Oh God.
which was really cool to hear Christmas song live. Um, but yeah, no. So that was kind of the first and what I love, and one of the best things that I think is great about uh, the band's music and why they capture such a multi-generational group of people. And I think it's Live at Luther College where Dave talks about, music's like art. And
It
once you
is.
put it out there, it's not yours anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's to the people who consume it and what it means
Mm-hmm.
to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so amazing for me that I see or that I love about their music and about music in general is it hits everyone so differently
Mm-hmm.
and with such a purpose or such a desire. And for me, it's the Dave Matthews Band. And my relationship's been a relationship of two tails. I was definitely the front half, minus the last 16 or 17 shows. I was, whenever they traveled kind of near central Illinois, Chicago, St. Louis, Deer
Yeah.
Creek,
Yeah.
something along those lines. And then the last 14 months, I think it's been 16 shows, and it's been Florida, Texas, Indiana, Wisconsin, heading out to the Gorge, Vegas, New York.
Dude, we were at
Um,
so many of the same
we
shows.
were at so many of the
And
same
I
shows.
hate that we've
Yeah,
never like officially crossed paths, but we
yeah,
will. We
no,
will.
no, and that's been so far. Before this past 14 months, it was always with the same couple friends and my family or like my family or my family of friends that I grew up with,
Yeah.
and um, I would say for the 7 or 8 shows this year, I've really grown a relationship with what I call my Dave family, and those are
Mhm.
people that I think have been on your show before, people that have gone to a bunch of shows, and people I just ran across this past year that are just wonderful people, and just a wonderful community of people that are phenomenal to be associated with and to be friends and family with, and for me, helped me on my journey, that we're on now.
Yeah. So I want to jump back again. Just, I'm trying to go through your history. Like, there is a moment where you start going to these shows, and yes, it becomes contagious, and you do want to see it because you've picked up at this point, like, oh, every show is different. Like, there's the chase for the songs that you didn't get at the last show or that you've never heard. And so the music, of course, is always the hook that brings us in. And then we find out all of the other components that are part of the Dave Matthews Band and the community around them, and that is the fans of this band. And so,
Yeah.
like, I know that you have shared with me that you do have so many connections now, but like, when did you find out about this community and like all of the things that fans do outside of the music together because of the music?
It was really uh, the Gorge. last year is probably where it really hit me. Like of just like the sheer love and level of community people have when you're out for 4 or 5 days with thousands and thousands of people who are out there not for other music, not for like they're out there for a band and for the people that love the same band.
Yeah.
And the stickers, the clothes, the stories, the people that reunite there on an annual basis. And that's how can you not be infatuated with that kind of opportunity? And that's where I relate to the people that have season tickets, to football or
Right, exactly.
baseball or college events. Like they do the tailgating and they do, the suites or whatever. And that is no different than what, concert goers go through or people that go to ballets or,
Mhm.
you know, Broadway shows, whatever it may be. Those
Mhm.
that's what people love, but ours is the band and they
That's right.
are phenomenal. And it's um the I would say a majority of my shows, what I've had fun with and where I know there's always a power of the community, going back to your question, is even this year I did a quick count, but I think it was out of the last 13 shows, 15 people have gone with me for their first time.
Wow. That's thank you for bringing
And
first timers. Thank you.
and they all come out like, I can't believe the community of people that are there and
Mm.
how nice they are and how joyous they are and how fun the crowd is. And that's always one of the first comments walking out of the show, other than how amazing the show was, it was how
Yeah.
amazing the people were.
Yeah.
And um, that's, I think that became, over the last 13 shows and another three to go, um, that's actually been an equal of a part of the drive for me to keep going back.
Mhm.
Um, because it's the people that are there that um, don't necessarily, it's not that they don't care about what's going on. It's the fact that we are all there and we all
Right.
care about being there. And that's a cool feeling and place to be.
It really is. It really is. So, as we know, life progressed. You loved the Dave Matthews Band before you
Yeah.
were a husband and before you were a father. So, let's like walk through how did your fanhood change once those things started to happen?
Um, my wife more watched me go to shows than go to
Yeah.
shows with me. But one of our mutual best friends and one of her coworkers were also big Dave fans. So we would occasionally go on couple weekends and
Mhm.
couple shows. But a lot of times, like the three of us would go, and my wife would stay back. In fact, that's how the Gorge was originally planned last year. Was my wife had no desire to go,
Mhm.
and she knew it was a bucket list trip thing for me. So she had scheduled it like for our little group to go, and she was going to stay back and stay
Yeah.
behind. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's um, I got off on a side part there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, so she kind of found Dave through you. Is that right? I mean, like
Yeah,
she
but
wasn't.
she knew of Dave, never went to any shows.
Yeah.
Um, I think the first show she went to with me was when they were at Wrigley,
Oh,
in
what a
2011.
what a
And
great one to go to.
yeah, no, one night I got the tickets, the other night she got the tickets. We did rooftop one night over on right field, right on the corner. So it was magnificent. The whole thing was amazing. I love for him to go back to Wrigley. I'm a huge
Mhm.
Cubs fan, so it was like
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like the perfect collection
Yeah.
of amazingness. And I have a great picture over here that we got at the marquee with him sold out. That I think's like the album cover for it.
Oh, that's right.
Um, yeah, no. So um, that's that was that. She went to I think three or four other shows with me, but um, with her work schedule, she couldn't really do shows a whole lot. But she
Sure.
knew that was my thing. She loved that I got to do it, and
Yeah.
but it's once we had kids, it kind of stopped. We had the
Yeah.
Dave Matthews Band channel on Sirius XM.
Right.
There was maybe a random show we could get to or that I could get to, but um, that's that's why I decided to kind of go all out this last 14 uh, 14 months, 15 months to get in these 13 plus shows.
So you've mentioned a couple times, like over the last 14 months, you've really kind of dug in and you've got some goals, you've got some shows coming up, and you've taken your boys, you've started doing these things. What is there a backstory to that? And like why are you doing things the way you're doing things now?
Yeah, so I think part of my story that got us connected is about a year and a half ago. My wife and I, my boys were on spring break. My wife got sick overnight and about 6 days later had passed away.
Oh my God.
Um, and that happened on our spring break in April of 23. About a month or so prior to that, she had booked my trip to the Gorge as a bucket list trip. And having an 8 and 10-year-old, I wasn't sure that was the only focus that mattered
Of
when that
course.
happened.
Of course.
And um, there's a survival mode you're in when you go through that kind of trauma, and it got to be closer to the event for the Gorge. And I was scheduled to go with my best friend who I took to her first day of show, who married her coworker, who's also my cousin. We had gone to, I think, maybe 8 shows together over the span of our life. And we talked and we still decided it was best for us to go because that's what we needed to have happen. Um, and so we went out. Her little sister went out with us, still went out to do everything to kind of honor the trip
Mm-hmm.
as it was intended. It had been scheduled 4 other times, 3 other times, and due to work issues, we had to cancel it. And
Yeah.
so we weren't going to let it happen on this one. And so we went, and it was absolutely magical. I ended up getting pit tickets on night 2, which, if you remember, on Friday night, Jimmy Buffett died. So when
Yes.
Dave came out Saturday, um, Dave started in the encore by talking about the friends he lost in the past week. Not only Jimmy, but some other people along the road that he known. And um, to have at that point Walk Around the Moon and some of the songs on that album and some of the other songs um, were leaned into so hard and such a point of support and just moments of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and not only was I was in the pit, I was kind of just far left rail, but I had an easy shot. And here's a guy that kind of saved me in my moments, is
Mm-hmm.
talking about his grief and his moments of loss and his trial to his family
Mm-hmm.
that's all out in front of him. And that was just, for me, one of the many breadcrumbs in my journey that just kind of said what I was doing was right,
Mm-hmm.
and I should have confidence in the way I'm doing things because it's not coincidence that you're 30 feet from a person that got you through some of your darkest moments, but also was part of some of your highest moments,
Yeah.
and they're there making sure it's all okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so then that started off a chase. What I was hoping to hear over that 3 days was Steady as We Go. That was, we were in the hospital for 6 days. And when I couldn't think of prayers to say, when I couldn't think of, you know, we were in between phone calls with our priest, whenever there was a moment I was lost for words, I just would sing that song. And I don't know why that song popped in my head, but it did. And and so I didn't hear it that 3 days, but over that 3 days, I think the lottery opened up for the fall tour, and I was like, well, shit, they're at the Garden, and so I requested for the Garden and got that. And that just then started a domino effect of like 13 shows later. That I would love to get the song, obviously, but the in every place I've gone to, they've been places where friends of mine have lived
Hmm.
along my life that have been impacts for part of my life and joined me at that show.
Yeah.
And it was a moment where, I got to, um, it's hard in grief to feel okay, to
Hmm.
feel okay.
Oof, yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
those were the moments that seemed to be the easiest.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
um, when you're with a friend, with someone that has seen you in your good and your bad, um, and you're at a concert hearing the music that's gotten you through the good and the bad, it's okay to be in the good.
yeah.
And um, you got to, no matter if you're going through something like this or you just have a job at home and you're grinding to just stay at it,
Hmm.
um, or you're grinding in your family to keep your family rolling, for whatever reason, there's hundreds of reasons why we struggle. Um, we got to have that release. And it's a two-part release. We could talk about having the release of having somewhere to go, like the Dave Matthews Band.
Hmm.
Um, we also got to have that release to talk about it
Yeah.
and 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 have that safe space to talk about it. And I'm not saying go go find a live music act where you can just start pouring your heart out to people.
Right.
But if we pause on the band talk and talk more on the mental aspect of this, like mental therapy, or having a therapist to talk to, having a constructive, safe space where the boundaries are, where someone can help you um, digest your thoughts and
Hmm.
digest how you can process them. And I was blessed. I've been in a relationship with my therapist. He's been amazing. And I think I've talked to him for almost 5 years now.
Wow.
And I, by the blessing of God, had an appointment scheduled, would end up being 30 minutes after I landed from Florida the day after my wife passed away.
Wow.
And I got, not only was able to, I was able to delay in telling the boys what happened to their mother.
Hmm.
And so I was able to have a constructive conversation with my therapist on how that conversation could go with
How
my
to do
boys.
it. How to
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
And so, even if the traumatic thing hasn't happened to you, like there is still a huge benefit, even if it's 4 times a year,
Hmm.
like having someone that you can go into and being like, man, I'm frustrated with my boss, or man, I love my boss,
Hmm. Hmm.
or I love my job, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's nice to have um, that place where we can feel safe, um, to help clear our mind. And my therapist is the most amazing guy. He knew I was a huge Dave fan because we've talked about it.
Of course. It's
It's come
part of
up
your
in plenty
life.
of conversations, and
Yeah.
it's been even more so as these 13 shows have rattled off. Um, but when the summer tour got announced, he saw the fact that he was going to be at West Palm. He and his wife, and they own their own practice. They have a bunch
Uh-huh.
of doctors that work there, and they were going to be down there at a like a training conference, like getting more education.
Yeah.
And they decided he really wanted to understand a little bit more of the draw and the understanding of what drew me so in and why I leaned in so hard to the music. And he and his wife, for just the sake of being amazing people, ended up going to the show.
Oh,
And he is so hooked now. It's great.
oh
It's
my
like
God.
we
Oh
always
my
spend a couple
God.
minutes off the clock talking about like just a couple fan things. And a couple albums to get started into, and I was like, you got to start with listener supported and let it be for college because that is.
That's usually, yeah, that's usually the one. What did he get an opportunity? Because I don't know, like if he just showed up just for the show and then left, or like did he get a chance to observe or to feel like just the community of fans and how they just the feeling that they give in the venues?
I think they they had a quick turnaround, from
Oh
what he
yeah,
shared. So I don't think they got to kind of tailgate or hang around
yeah,
after,
yeah,
but they did get to know some of the people kind of in their immediate area.
right.
Um, so yeah, he's a huge fan. I think I got him on the couch tour now,
Oh
so he watches the couch. So yeah,
yay!
so I mean, like I love the fact that, I embrace the people that kind of like look at me crazy, with the amount of shows I've gone to, or the fact that like my friends will get in the car and it's like, do you ever have anything on other than the Dave Matthews Band radio? I'm like, I think there's like one song every 18 minutes that isn't theirs.
Right,
Unless it's
right,
like
right, right.
Seek Up or Love or Lay Down, then we'll get another song. You just need to be in my car longer.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's there's times where it's just right and the band's perfect and I love them in my
So
car.
right.
Yeah, I mean, there's like windows down, turn it up. There's not a song that doesn't hit, wrong.
Right. But
When
then there's those songs that isn't it funny? And I'm sure that and I want to dig into Steady as we go, but there are songs that you know about because their catalog is so large that you don't
Mhm.
necessarily think about in, your everyday or like even like chase it or go that's your go-to, but then every once in a while or often a song will come up from behind you and you'll hear it and it'll hit you and it's like it bits you and you're like, oh wait a second. I feel like a lot of times it finds you when you need it, right? And when you're ready to receive whatever message is inside of that. But let's talk about, I mean, I know you said that Steady as We Go just was the song that just came to you, like it came in your head, and that's just since you've had so much time to digest that now, are there parts of that song that you really go, okay, yeah, this was the perfect song?
um, I, I think there was a moment, you know, um, there was a moment early where I knew I didn't have to travel halfway around the world, just to be down and be by her side.
Mm-hmm.
But um, the fact that before we always thought there was going to be a chance she was going to pull through this thing, but I knew, and it was later developing, it was going to take up to a year to just get her home.
Mm-hmm.
Not even like out of, but just to be able to get her transported home.
Right.
And um, nothing was going to stop me
Yeah.
from that. And remembering the good times that are gold, in these scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And um, but I think just knowing that I was going to travel halfway around this world back on once she was stable enough just to get home for overnight to see the boys, before a soccer game,
Mm-hmm.
or those life events to make sure that they know that, their parents are still all in for them.
Yeah.
Um, there's if we can run across town, to multiple soccer practices, man, there's got to be a way that I'll be able to find direct flights or do something to make it work. And that's why the song felt right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going back now, maybe there's other songs that are as good or as
Mm-hmm.
appropriate. Um, those are also really easy lyrics to remember to sing. I think that
Yes. Right. Right.
you know, um,
Is it
so
hard
yeah,
for you to
it's
hear? Is it hard for you to hear it? Is it a difficult song for you to listen to? Or does it bring you joy?
Oh, I
Or
think
both?
it brings me more joy than anything. Um, I get increasingly anxious thinking about what will happen when I hear it live, if I get the chance to hear
You
it
will.
live.
You will.
Um, and that's um, I think it was I was trying to remember what song it was that they played E1 in Tampa for the tour opener, and I was there because I'd never been to a tour opener, so I was like, "Let's do it, I'm in."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I can't remember where he played E1, but it caught me. It was like Sweet or You and Me. It was, one of those other great
Oh,
love
yeah.
songs that he
Yeah.
has. And I was there with one of my best friends that was in my wedding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm, I'm crying and I can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Not like uncontrollably, but like it's just like someone turned on the faucets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of sitting here and like trying to get it. And he's like, my buddy's not sure to like put his arm around me or to like tap me on the shoulder or like
Right.
he's not sure what to do.
Right.
Um, it kind of gets over. I kind of wiped the last tear. I was like, "You could have hugged me, man." You know. It's like, but I think that's going back to being vulnerable. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
it's we hadn't talked a lot, and I'll probably plug it at some point a little bit more of the podcast project that I am trying to work on that I'm hoping is close away, but it's a talk about grief and that journey and being able to get through it, and music's been such an important part of that for me, and I would say 90% of music's probably been the band, that is just helps me recenter my headspace,
Yeah.
and there's a steady version that plays a lot on Sirius XM of one that I was at in St. Louis. Um, so I'd heard it, I know, at least once before. Um, I just haven't had a lot. I didn't travel with enough frequency to get on DMB Almanac, and kind of like log my shows and do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm really wanting to now. It's just more of like finding the time.
Right.
Um, but it's and it happens. I'll get there and I'll do
You
it.
will.
But I know I've heard Steady once live. But yeah, I always pack an extra like tissue, not tissue, like a little handkerchief in
Mm-hmm.
my pocket with me to use the shows this year because I just know inevitably I'm going to lose it and I'm going to be okay. I'll have
Yeah.
to be okay losing it. That'll
Well,
just
that
be
it
it.
is
So
okay. It is okay. And I think it's such, for me, a lot of times just letting that go brings so like it releases something, right? It releases something. I don't know what it releases, but it does. And you sometimes feel a sense of like, I feel better now that I've just let that out. And so,
yeah,
crying is one of those things that I think people talk about that like, oh, I could never, I don't want to do that, but also being vulnerable to letting that happen, because it is important to process feelings. I think that really is one of the keys of to healing. And so, like, how in the world did, or like, take us to the point where you're like, I have a lot I need to say. I have a lot I want to try to process. I have a lot of things I want to do when it comes to all of these new feelings I have because I've never been through this in my life before, like dealing with grief, and I've never lost a spouse before, like tell us about the podcast. Let's kind of dig into that and like how did that originate and like what is your goal and what is the podcast about?
so my I've always wanted to be in a position to help people. I've helped on boards and community projects for United Ways and Red Crosses and other community-based organizations and Rotary clubs, um, and I love all of them. And um, in my wife's obituary, I didn't want a donation to just made in memory of, And one of the things I really wanted to get done in the first couple days of her passing and setting everything up was also setting up an endowment in her name that could have a purpose and a desire. And it ended up actually coming up with two. Long story short, though, we're over $100,000 that we've been able to raise in the last year and a half or more since she passed. One helps students in college because she was the first in her family to graduate from college. And then the other one helps children in youth or youth in education and sports. We moved to a town where we didn't have any family. It's where I live now.
Mm-hmm.
Our nearest family is 2.5 hours away. So for
Wow.
us as a family and our kids to get integrated in the community, we needed programs in their education and their sports. And so the other endowment helps feeds programs that, encourage children in educational and sports activities. And that's great. And that's set up because it's set with a community foundation. It's very easy and turnkey that the boys and I and the next generations, 2 generations of family get to help with. But I can communicate and talk well in my profession and in my life. I've been blessed with the ability to hold conversation and be engaging.
Yeah.
And my experience through grief is unique, just like everyone's experience in grief is unique. There's no right or wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
After the hardest thing of all this was telling the boys
Mm-hmm.
about their mom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I can't imagine.
it's one thing of in day one, I'm there at my wife when she's passing, and then 2 days later, I have to tell the boys, or the next day, I have to tell the boys that their mom's gone,
Mm.
and that, God, you know, um, and I told the boys we're going to have 2 rules as we go through this journey, and we're not going to hurt ourselves, and we're not going to hurt other people.
Mm.
And I think in grief, those are probably 2 of the most solid rules we can have.
Yes.
And not to hurt ourselves and not to hurt other people around us. And I think other than that, everything can be on the table for a discussion.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to wrap up season 1, which is essentially a set of episodes that's more based on survival in the first year and a half of
God.
things
Yeah.
of someone that loses their spouse as a single parent in various scenarios. And then season 2 is a little bit more of inspiration of your style of the podcast of trying
Mm-hmm.
to bring on other people that have gone through their their journey of grief, their loss, and it's going to start with a lot of people similar to mine, but I have people lined up that are caregivers whose
Yes.
spouse or loved one went through cancer
Mm.
and the grief they go through. There's people that go through financial loss that
Mm-hmm.
it creates another whole aspect of what we don't understand. And so really the podcast is an opportunity that I want to create a community similar to what we have of a community as Dave Matthews Band fans and
Mm-hmm.
have podcasts and video casts available where someone, when they're going through their grief, have a place where they can kind of look by topic and by story and hopefully like take pieces of other people's experiences and see if that makes sense for them.
Yes.
And so that's I have some episodes tied around music. I have an episode tied around the band, and it's grief is the ugliest thing we never want to experience,
Mm-hmm.
but is the most beautiful thing we end up experiencing in our life because it's the one thing that ties all of us together.
Yes.
There is nothing else in this world that ties every individual together than the moment of grief of losing someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a really interesting piece behind that of how it can make a connection. But then I think it brings up a discussion of just how splintered grief can be. And I think much like I said, the band and the Dave Matthews Band's music is taken so many different ways for so many different reasons and for so many different purposes. And I think so much of like, oh, so much I remember last year of like the first 6 months after Leslie passed away was the song "The Funny the Way It Is."
Mm.
And you know how um, a soldier's last breath is a baby being born. And
Yes.
it's these kinds of moments in that song that didn't make me say, man, my wife passing away is okay. But there's a level of perspective of going through this grief and this journey of talking with other people, of knowing that other people have survived this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, I'll make the tie. It's much like you start talking to people this last year for me of like, what's your favorite part of being at the shows and tailgating or being in this city? And it's all a collection of experiences that help us get to the next experience we're going to go through. And so
Yes.
I hope my podcast, I hope I didn't kind of jump back and forth too much, but my podcast, I hope to just provide resources for those that are struggling in their moments of grief. And
Yes.
yeah.
It's so important. What is the name of your podcast and how can someone find it if they're listening to this?
Yeah, so I'm going to hopefully have it out in, the next 30 to 60 days. I hope to have season one or portions of season one out and ready. It'll be called A Guide Through Grief.
Okay.
I'll have it out on all of your main, podcast channels. I'm also going to have a YouTube channel for it because I'll be recording it much like you.
Yeah.
For the people that want to watch it, I think it'll be important to understand the body language and the understanding of the difference of different pieces of grief and the
Mm-hmm.
physical part we go through. So this won't
Mm-hmm.
be the same backdrop for it. This was strictly for today's conversation, but it's for those that are watching on YouTube or not, maybe you should because you could see a bunch of different posters over my shoulders from the last 14 months of shows and it's my little art wall. So,
Talk us through them. Like, okay, yeah, for sure. If you're just listening to this, be sure
well,
to check this out on YouTube. It's simply Under the Space Between podcasts. So like what do you have going back here?
That's that's the prize one. So that's actually also from Saturday night. That's the foil Sperry,
Yes.
and it's celebrate on below it. It's life is short but sweet,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that line is so another aspect of being on the rail that night. What happened to Jimmy the night before? Dave talking with my wife. There
Mm-hmm.
was just another piece of like I spent a stupid amount of money on posters that night alone, but then the whole weekend,
Yes, yes.
it's an addiction. I
It can
understand.
be.
I've looked at season ticket prices. I've still spent less than season tickets at any of the sports teams I like.
Well,
So
see? Yep.
I justify it and I'm okay
That's
with it.
right.
But um, the one up is from Noblesville last year. It was the rain shortened show. It was actually the first one that started. Six of my neighbors who all have kids my boy's age.
Uh-huh.
At the last minute, we jumped in a Suburban and drove to Noblesville for a show, and it was all of their first show. Um,
Awesome.
MSG's up there, the triptych
Yeah.
from the
Yes.
Gorge, Noblesville, Vegas, Tampa, Alpine. Um, they're all back
Wow.
there. They're fun. I have a couple other foils. There's the boys got posters when they went to Alpine. So
Yes.
their bathrooms, they have their first two posters hanging up, and
I
they're in
love
their
that.
bathrooms. So we're all about it.
I
It's
love that. I love that. It's just,
yeah,
it's another thing, like you say, it's 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 equivalent to sports or any other like hobby interest type thing. And so, but this is yet another thing that you
yeah,
have to share with your children, which makes it even more beautiful that this has just it's been a part of you for so long, and for it to trickle down into your children and for it to be something that they love. I mean, that's just it's a beautiful story in itself, and it will be one of those things that um, you know I like to think that after we're gone and our children no longer have any of us, that when they hear the music of the Dave Matthews Band, that is going to be something that is a constant reminder of their
Hmm.
parents, and bring back such fond memories about, you know, what they see us doing now, right? And so
Yeah.
it is amazing what music is doing. So first of all, I need to thank you in so many different ways. Number one, thank you for just being willing to being on this show, and being vulnerable and being willing to share such a story that, no one wants to share that story, because it's hard. It's something that you can't prepare for. It's something that no one is ever prepared for. And so thank you for just sharing that, because I know that someone listening to this is going to find something in that story that's going to help them, because of course you are not the only one. There are countless of people who have similar stories of loss and grief, and how do I move on, and how do I function in this new role that I have, and without any training, and without any, like, no one told me I was going to have to do this. Like, how does it all work? And so thank you so much for that. And thank you for starting your podcast, because there is such a need. And I can say this with absolute certain, as a nurse, and I work in, a lot with hospice and grief. And grief is one of those things that it is, it's a tricky bastard, right? It's a tricky thing, and that's why it is so important to not do it alone, because no one is
Yeah.
prepared, and I don't think you could get through it well alone. And so thank you for
Yeah.
providing a platform for people that may not be okay with talking about it, but yeah, being able to find your podcast or something online that no one has to know that they're kind of digging it, that they're that they're hurting, right? Sometimes people don't want to admit those
Yeah.
things, like, I'm not okay. And it is okay to say that you're not
Yeah.
okay, but on the flip side of that, like you said earlier, it's okay to be okay too, right?
Hmm.
Like, it is
It
okay.
is, and there's a part, and it's okay to do it on your clock when you're ready
Yeah.
to, and
Yeah.
that's um, if I plug any other organization, there is a great, it's griefshare.org. I think they're an organization that gets together for like 12 weekly meetings. It's a Christian based organization, but they help people get through grief, and it's kind of like a weekly meeting. There's a video, there's a workbook. I did it just because I didn't know how to kind of start to gather my thoughts. And this was a great
Yes.
place where I saw people that were 3, 4, 5, 10 years removed from their loss and still utilizing the classes and the organization. So don't feel like it's too soon or too late.
That's right.
If you're struggling, that's a great organization that actually has trained professionals and a place that can help you get started if you're just looking for that kind of place.
Well, Tom, I can't thank you enough. I would love to invite you to come back to the show, because, of course, your journey is far from over. You still have some shows you're headed out to this year,
We
it
got the
sounds like.
gorge. We got
Well,
the
so
gorge
so
in
you're
just a couple of
wow,
weeks.
yeah, it's coming up. I mean, I'm so excited. It's like everything that is in the air right now, and you're, a fan that has dug themselves down the rabbit hole, and they can feel the energy of everything that's about to happen,
Yeah.
which I feel like you're on that level too. Like, everyone's talking about the gorge, everyone's excited. Even people that are not going are excited, because of course we have those luxuries, like the couch tour, that we'll be able to watch every show live and be in real time. And so
Speaking of
uh
that, what cell provider do these people have? Because
I
every
don't
show I've been
know.
at, my cell reception sucks. It's
Me too.
horrible. Like,
Me
I
too.
don't know how they stream. Like, they have a hotspot. They have some cheat code, like
Something.
up, down. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
have no idea, but thank God that it does, right? And so if you're not familiar
Yeah.
with what we're talking about when we say couch tour, it is simply just a group on Facebook. It's absolutely free. You do have to answer some questions to get into the group, because, of course, I just want to make sure that it's fans that are in there for the purpose of watching these live streams. But it is literally just fans that are at these shows who donate their arm muscles to the rest of us that cannot be there, and you will get every there. And honestly, there's multiple angles because there's more than just one person that
Mhm.
does the live stream, and so you
There
can check
was
in and
this
out.
dude earlier this year. There
Yeah.
was this dude earlier this year. He was commentating and it was awesome. He was, oh my gosh. When I share, I'll have to figure it out. But he was by far one of the best streamers I've seen on Couch Tour in like a year. I mean, he was phenomenal commentary.
I love the couch tour. I will definitely be streaming. So when it comes to really all of them, but
Mhm,
definitely the gorge because we know that the set lists there are special. There's I mean, and special to you in a whole different level
mhm,
of ways. But the gorge, if you've never had the opportunity, or if you've never heard of the gorge, that's in the state of Washington. I would say it's just northeast of Seattle, and so it's really just in the middle of nowhere. But it is what people often say is heaven's amphitheater. And you really can
mhm.
understand that once you get there. But it is one of those venues that you do have
Oh,
to physically get there before you can
mhm.
truly understand the magic that is the gorge. So I hope that you have such a great time and that it is just a time of like, just just filling you back up, right? Just filling your
Yeah.
cup up and filling you with love. And I hope that you walk away just, every day stronger and more equipped to continue to help people. So again, thank you so much for all that you're doing.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, I mean it's always a good time. I mean, but here's the
Yeah.
deal. I'm not going to let you off the hook yet because there's something I have to do, which is Dave Matthews Band trivia. I won't forget because I feel like you're going to be good at it. So, and even
We'll see.
even if you're not, I always
If
tell
we're not,
everyone
it'll be okay.
it's an opportunity to learn more, right, about the band. And
Absolutely.
so if you guys are listening to this or if you're watching, where you are going to play along as well. So as I ask these questions, Tom, I'm going to ask you just to kind of pause if you
Yeah.
know right away, just kind
I'll
of
keep
hold
my
on to
hands
your
up here. I'm
thoughts.
not using a device. I'm not looking
He's
up
not
answers onto the
cheating.
side.
Yeah, he's not cheating. So you guys can play at home or in your car or wherever you may be listening to this podcast. And so we'll do like a little Jeopardy music. I'll ding 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 ding, and then we'll do the answer. So this is an opportunity to learn more about the Dave Matthews Band. Okay, so there was a great question. I don't know I like this question, and I've only asked it once, but it has been recently. So if you have heard it, I'm sorry, but if you haven't, this is my favorite question right now. Do you know which band member was in a Twix commercial, like Twix the candy bar?
I think it was Carter, wasn't it? I have to think. Let me think about this. I don't want to ruin it for my hands are up. I'm not listening. I'm ready for my final answer. I've locked in.
It's Boyd.
Oh,
So homework for everyone, go to YouTube and search for Boyd Tinsley Twix commercial. It is there and it is awesome. It's totally done in like his style. I mean, he's like guns out, like ready to go in his true fashion, right? Like he looks like he couldn't be more excited to be eating a Twix bar, right? Like
okay.
everything is
I
about
was
so
I was
that's
going with drumsticks maybe for Twix.
sure.
That's
No,
where
I
I was
get it.
going
Oh, but
for.
that would be perfect. Twix, if you're listening, which you're not, but like if you are, we can sell some Twix bars for you. Be like the DMB special edition of Twix bars. Call them Carter sticks. I will buy them.
Yeah.
I will buy them. Okay,
They
let's see.
reunite the left and right again. They
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of there being left Twix and right Twix, they bring them back and be the Carter edition because you got a drum with them.
Yes. Well, maybe that'll happen. And if it does, it's because of us. So thank us later for sure. Okay, let's see. Let's go in a different direction. That's almost like pop culture type questions. I want to dig into kind of like more history of the band, who these guys are, and even like song lyrics. I always love a good like, what song did this come from? So in order to do that, let's do this. In which song would you find this line? All of the captain's cards are kings. I'll say that one more time for those of you that are listening at home. And I don't sing it on purpose. Number one, I can't sing. Number two, that would make it easier. So, in which song would you find this line? All of the captain's cards are kings.
Man, I have it to two. Okay.
No pressure.
Big Big-eyed fish?
It's a song that Jane likes. Now, okay, I want you
Oh
to process
yeah.
that for a second because you're going to hear it in your head. I know that you
Hmm.
are. You're like, go through that song
No,
and then you're like,
I just put
oh,
the beat of it. I'm like, yep, that's right.
there it is. Yep, there it
Yeah.
is. This is so difficult for me. I literally don't think I would be able to do it if the answers weren't in front of me because just like taking certain lyrics, like I know the lyrics and I could probably even sing a little bit past that, but to place it in a song is very hard for me. It's just my brain doesn't
I
necessarily work
I
that
can see him
way.
on a sticker. I can see him on a poster, but I
Hmm.
need to hear. Yeah, yeah.
I get it. Yeah, no, same way. Okay, let's do another one just that way. So I'm
See
going
if
to
I can
give you
get one
some
here.
lyrics, and then you tell me what song you think is coming from. She comes to me. I watch her drink. I watch her comb her hair. If I could sing it, you would know it right away. Because he says,
Dream girl. No.
no,
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dream Girl just because that's what's popped into my head first. I don't think that's
no,
right,
yeah,
but
no, it's not. It's recently. Like, okay, so let's go back
okay.
to recently and go, okay. I can't sing, but if I could. So she comes to me. I watch her drink. I watch her comb her hair. Like the way that he says it is very choppy, but go back.
Hmm.
I'm giving you more homework and recently just like listen for that and then you're going to be like, "Oh my god, I hear it now." But the way he says it in that song, the way he chops it up, it's very different than me reading it the way I do. And so it does make it a lot more difficult. So, okay. Hey, I bet you've got this one though.
Okay,
I'm
let's see.
going, I'm going, you've got this one. I have so much faith in you. I'm going crazy and it's all because of you. It's all because of you. I'm going under over you. This time now is so alive. One more
Can you
time for
say?
those of you.
Yeah, just say it one more time. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
I'm going crazy and it's all because of you. It's all because of you. I'm going under over you. This time now is so
Cr-
alive. I want to sing it.
Is it Crush? Why do I want to say crazy? Yeah, Crush.
It's so right.
Our love is so right. Yeah.
Say, oh, I love
I'm
that
so
song so much.
embarrassed. I'm
No,
so
don't be embarrassed.
embarrassed.
No, you're never gonna get them wrong ever again. Like this is DMB school, and you're never gonna get it wrong again. DMB
Spoken
school.
word is so much. Spoken word is so much
So
harder
much
than.
different. It's so much different than singing. And if I could sing, it would make it easier. But again, you would hit off as soon as I start. Like anyone that's listening, hear me singing, they're going to be like, click, that woman is crazy. Turning that off. Okay, well, let's move past lyrics. Let's do something. I want you to get. I want you to get one because I need that for you. Okay, let's see. Ooh, well, and I don't want to go this easy, but I'm going to.
Softball.
What 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 country is Dave originally from?
South Africa.
Boom! See, you did
Softball.
it.
Level two question. I got it. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, not every fan would know that. So,
No, they wouldn't. Good point. Good point.
yeah, I mean, I would say that most fans in general don't really across the board. Not just talking about Dave Matthews Band, but like or maybe they do. Do people really dig into where is this person from? What's their origins? Like, do people dig into that? I like to, but like, is that a normal
I,
thing?
so when I was in college, I guess I know we're wrapping up. when I was in college, I got like everyday Lily White sessions and stand up were like
Hmm.
my college years. And I wrote like a 10-page research paper right after Busted Stuff, I think came out, because that also came out in college. But I talked about his past, what led him up into the Lily White session, like into that time when LimeWire and Napster was all, big.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes.
no, so yeah, I did. I dove into that part of trying to figure out more of like this, just some of that. I thought it was really intriguing. So,
Dude, do you still have that paper?
I might still have that hard drive somewhere. I should
I
look for it.
would love to read it. I I am that girl that's like, dude, if you wrote a college essay about the Dave Matthews Band, send it on over. I would love to
Yeah.
absorb that. I would love to absorb that. So if you find it, and actually, you're the second person that's ever told that to me. I had a guy that I met in Florida this year at the. I don't know if it was at Tampa or West Palm Beach, but he had told me about it, and I was like, dude, bring it with you. I want to check it out. He brought a handwritten essay about the Dave Matthews Band that he had wrote back in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, and it was just so cool to like read that but also know the future, right? Like it
Yeah.
was just like wow,
Hmm.
just wild. So yeah, I encourage you to find that.
All right. We'll
So
see what
you
I can
can
do.
read it. So you can read it. But I can't thank you again enough for just being willing to take some time out and talk about Dave and to share everything. And so I invite you back. I would love to hear how the gorge goes, and then just even the rest of 2024 on into 2025, and definitely once you get the podcast up and going and how things are going, I'd love for you to come back in and talk about it some more, just because I want to help expose that for you. I think it's so needed, it's so important, and so I definitely want to help in your mission with that.
No, appreciate it. We'll find out an episode and a topic you can come and join me on, and we'll do that.
Absolutely. I would love that. Well, guys, again, if you're listening to this on a podcast app, just be sure to watch out. And for the YouTube side, it's simply under the space between podcasts. And if you want to know who is next on the show, well, it could be someone you know. You never know who's going to be on the space between podcasts, because again, it's just fans. But fans, there are all different kinds of fans. I have some exciting guests who, well, you'll just have to stay tuned. I can't tell you that. Just you got to come back to get more information. But follow me on all the socials. There is a page on Facebook under the Space Between Podcast, or there's a group, the Space Between Podcast. On Instagram, it's simply the Space Between _POD. And then TikTok, if you want to see all those funny memes that I just have a blast doing, it's simply just, again, under the Space Between Podcast. And do all of those things that your teenagers and our young millennial friends tell us to do when you go to YouTube. You have to do what, Tom? What do you got to do when you go to YouTube?
You got to look up the space between podcasts in that search field after you sign in and register.
Yeah, and then you got to like, and you got to
Like,
subscribe.
subscribe,
You got to do all of
and
those things.
all the like and subscribe, share,
Yeah, I don't even know,
um,
but like and subscribe.
grab the
That
link, copy the link, send the link. There's all kinds of
There's
things you
so
can do these
much,
days.
which sounds so silly, but honestly, it helps me out. Of course, this show is a word of mouth kind of show, and it cannot continue without more fans of the Dave Matthews Band coming on to share their personal journey. So if you know someone that's interested in sharing their journey, definitely send them my way. They can message me on any of those apps. And so, guys, until the next time, peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band. Thank you so much, Tom.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yeah.